Hello and welcome to today's Horton Hangout. I'm Laura Horton.
And I'm Michael Bentley. Good morning on this another beautiful sunny day here in the United Kingdom.
It is most definitely. I'd like to say thank you for your questions that you have submitted to us. We've got some different types of questions that have come through, which are great. So we're going to get started. The first one that I've got here is a favourite of mine, I have to say, and I know Michael and I spend a lot of time discussing this with practices, and it's actually an area that we're very passionate about, and that is the role of the dental therapist, because it really is a fantastic role. So someone sent a question in, which is, how do you get your patient to see a therapist for their treatment, especially when they've joined the practice just to see you as the dentist? Well, I'll start by talking about new patients, and then Michael can discuss with you existing patients. But really, I'd like to say that with new patients, fantastic, it's never been easier. And many practices that are using therapists will be able to tell you that actually they've had a wonderful experience with new patients, because it's all about the way that you communicate as a dentist. What I will say is, you as a dentist have to be so clear about why you're using a therapist and what their role is and the benefits to the patient. And the other thing is, their fees have to be the same. So you don't say, well, you see them because they're cheaper, because that really is quite a frightening thing for patients. So the fees have to be the same. But really, it just allows you as a dentist to say that, you know, this person, their passion is fillings, they do all the fillings for me, I am still responsible for your care, and we have discussed also doing a crown today. If you go ahead with that, I'll be providing that treatment for you, and I will still be seeing you for your routine assessments that you need every 6, 9 or 12 months. So with new patients, you really have got a golden opportunity. We tend to work with practices that have got a huge patient base, that really have looked at their figures. They see the dentists are spending a lot of time doing fillings. The dentists aren't necessarily passionate about that either, and they want to prescribe that work out. And we spend a lot of time with practices, and Michael himself has worked in practice alongside therapists using that model. So I'll hand that over to Michael now.
Yes, I mean, I think one of the most important things about working with a therapist is, first of all, like the training behind it as well. You've got to make sure that you're confident that the therapist is using the same materials that you would use as a dentist, and that you feel very confident they're going to deliver the clinical experience that you want to. Laura, you're going to have to take over for 2 seconds. I need to quieten my dog.
Oh, fun and games of being live. Yeah, so it is very important that the therapists aren't necessarily just thrown in to your practice and just chucked, you know, have patients thrown in at them. When you own a practice, you should be very passionate about the materials that you use, the training that you've been on, and therapists need to follow in that path as well. So you need to be confident to be able to say to patients that we have branded experiences behind everything that we are offering. So they use the same materials, they use the same techniques. I have trained them on those techniques. And I think another thing to always implement is clinical peer review. So you can confidently say to patients, you know, once a month, every other month, every 3 months, we actually have a clinical peer review where we can work together with the hygienist, with the therapist, reviewing cases and taking things forward. So really, we want the patients to have a lot of confidence in what you are offering and why you are sending that patient over. Was that helpful, Michael?
I think so, from what I've heard. Yeah, I don't, you know, it's really important, isn't it, that relationship? And one of the things that I stress when even recruiting a therapist is that part of it should be a trial day experience. So what happens then is that the therapist actually works alongside the dentist for 1 day. So you're not putting a therapist, you know, in a room on their own. It's actually for the dentist and the therapist to work together. So first of all, the therapist can observe the dentist and make sure that the therapist is confident they're going to get the prescriptions that they want so they feel confident to be able to do the treatment. That's number one. And then secondly, the therapist can then do a filling alongside the dentist. The dentist assists, which is quite a strange experience. However, the dentist then gets to fully observe that therapist's skill set and how they obviously approach, the cutting of the tooth, etc., etc. Again, to give that dentist confidence that that therapist is able to do the type of filling that they would like them to do. And I think that's really important. And I think once that relationship is confident, then the dentist will feel able to talk about the therapist with confidence and with the ability of, do you know what, I know that that therapist that I've employed in the practice, is going to be able to do what I want them to do, and it isn't going to come back to me and be a problem. And I think that's what dentists worry about the most, is will it be a substandard experience for the patient? Will it be a treatment that doesn't work? As well, will I get the patient back? We'll have to start, refunding or redoing treatment. And so that relationship is really, really important. So those are like recruitment rules around that as well. The other thing that I've come across with dentists, with therapists, is that the dentists are very concerned about the patients having a lot longer in a chair for a filling. So they may do a filling within 20 to 30 minutes. A therapist may do the filling exactly the same, but they'll take a little bit longer. So they might take 30 or 40 minutes. And I do feel that the dentists feel that actually that is a problem to a patient. And what I have found is actually the patients actually like the additional time, because they actually rate that as, something that's actually nice to have a longer appointment. So therapists can have the opportunity really to spend a little bit longer with a patient. They can do more patient experience work alongside doing the filling, and that experience is normally a win-win for both the patient and the therapist, and for the dentist as well. So I think you've confirmed how you do the the conversation behind that. Is that right? While I went to attend my dog situation.
Yeah, so just to recap then, it's something that you should be really proud of, but you need to get your house in order, your systems in order, so that everyone's working in confidence, so that the patient then can trust in those systems that you've put in place. So hopefully that helps with therapy. Michael, do you want to read out a question?
Yeah, I've had a good question here, and it's should a practice manager have a personal relationship with other staff members, making staff members feel excluded by doing this?
This is yeah, it's great. It's quite juicy, and something we do discuss on the first day of our management course on the leadership day, and it's quite difficult. And I know Michael and I have actually been in situations where we are in a management role and we do have a member of the team that is also a personal friend. And you do have to be very careful here. And you need to be clear that when you're at work, you're at work. And you don't talk about your night out or a planned trip or whatever it might be. You have to have barriers there when you've got a personal friend at work. I also always used to perhaps, and feedback was that perhaps I was a little bit tougher on my personal friend at work.
I'm laughing because you know what, I was exactly the same.
Yeah, because
you end up being harder with those people that you are closer to, because you want to make sure that there is a management route available to you, if you need it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's about respect from your other team as well. I think one of the things, just to sort of digress not slightly, but just to discuss as well, is I was told as a manager that I couldn't be friends with my team. I couldn't be friendly with my team. And I always discuss this again on the management day, because I think that's completely wrong. You
I agree.
have a relationship with your team. You need to be friendly. You need to have common interests. There needs to be things that you can discuss. But that doesn't mean go out and get drunk as a skunk on a Friday night with them. But it is important that you have a relationship, you have common interests, there are things you can discuss. That's extremely important for leadership. However, You've got to, again, be very wary of what you're doing, is what I would say. I think the biggest mistake you can make as a manager is by not having a relationship with any of your team members, and then being very clear to everyone else that you get on wonderfully with one person because your best friend's out of work. You've got to have an even, fair relationship with everybody. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said there. And I think that's one of the things that I always say to practice managers is actually it's the team members that you don't chat to a lot are the ones that you really need to chat to a lot more. And that's why we often say to people, you know, you need to be meeting up with team members every week for 15-20 minutes with a couple of key questions to ask them. And the reason behind that is that people that you don't speak to very much, you're not going to build a relationship with those people. So actually you need to build up some systems in practice that you do talk to every single team member as a practice manager week on, every single week, where they get your attention, your quality time, to build that relationship, because you never know when you're going to need it. That's the important thing. You know, some people can ride in a practice for years and years without any problems, and then something happens, you know, in their life, you know, their health, you know, one of their, you know, key members of the family, something like that. And suddenly this staff member does need your support, and you don't have a relationship to be able to support them with. And therefore they start to not tell you things early, and things grow into a problem much faster because you didn't have the relationship to then say, you know, is everything okay? Will you tell me what's going on? And somebody's actually, well, actually, I don't know you very well, so you're the last person I want to talk to about this situation. The other key thing is definitely going to be confidentiality. And I think that's one of the hardest things about being a practice manager is that you know a lot of stuff. And you have to keep a lot quiet, and sometimes it's the news is going to be broken at some point, but you almost have to wait. It's a bit like a spoiler, isn't it, in a TV show? That's what I say. You keep a lot of spoilers to yourself before they come out, and you have to make sure that you definitely are able to keep secrets, and you demonstrate that you can do that. I think that's really important. You do have to have the relationship. And the other thing I want to say is make sure you have a relationship with all of the team members. So, you know, not just the employed staff. You do need to be friends with the associates and the self-employed people as well. I think it's really important. Again, I think the self-employed staff can be left for months on end without any communication from a manager, apart from hello, goodbye, everything all right with today. And that's not really nurturing somebody. I know that we can't manage a self-employed member of the team the same way as an employed member of staff, but I still want you to have that connection and with all of your staff members. I think that's really important. Especially when I'm finding now that teams are growing, aren't they, Laura? That's what I'm finding. You know, they're growing. I mean, the number of practices now that have got more than 10 staff is much higher than it was 10 years ago. That's what I think. I don't know what you think, but that's what I'm seeing a lot of. And even teams that are growing above 20 members of staff as well, you know, again, it's a lot of work, isn't it? So then you have to start splitting workloads, don't you? And that's where leader positions are really key to keep moving forward that communication. So that moves quite cleverly because those leaders become leaders and will have big friendships with those people. So again, they do need to acquire all the hints and tips that we've just given about being a leader. It's the same thing as a practice manager. You have to be able to have that distance and treat everybody the same. So if you find you're suddenly becoming a leader in practice, and maybe you've been friends with the dental nurse team for many years, that is going to change things quite a lot, isn't it? You know, within you know, a day-by-day basis. So again, what we've shared with you will work equally as well.
Yeah, I think something people definitely ask me for help with is I was the dental nurse, I was the receptionist, now the practice manager. How on earth do I deal with this? And that's, you know, a great avenue that I really do like to help people with, definitely. I've got to move on to the next question now.
Okay.
This one was sent in through our Facebook page, so thank you very much for that. My associate's appointment book is really quiet just now. We're an NHS practice and her chair time occupancy was around 55% last week. Not good. Haven't spoken to her about it. She feels that she is lacking confidence with recommended treatments to patients, crowns, new dentures, etc. Obviously, as a practice owner, I want the appointment book to be busier, but how do I address this? So firstly, thank you for putting a lot of meat on the bones there, because it does help us to give you a bit more of a direct answer. I think what's great here is that you're looking at the figures, you know the reality of the situation, and you've spoken to your associate dentist. And then what's even better is that they've been able to be really honest with you and say, I'm lacking confidence. So that actually ties in nicely with the previous question. So that shows that you're doing well as in a leadership position, because they're able to be open and honest with you and essentially ask you for help. This is where you're now stuck, because you're like, how do I address this? Perhaps it's not something you've experienced personally. And actually, it's a very delicate situation, isn't it? You know, dentists, they're high-career professionals. We worry about upsetting them. If the dentists are happy, everybody's happy. That's the kind of mantra that goes around. But I do think it's lovely that they've come to you and been honest with you. I would go back to basics here, and it's not necessarily about whether they have the confidence or not to deal with these things. It's actually the fact that they have to. So if you look at your GDC contract, if you look at GDC standards for the dental team, it is very clear. I'd start with standard 2, standard 3, communication and consent, and sit down together and go through those and tick off what is happening and what isn't, and how actually this is detrimental to their career, their livelihood, the clothes on the back, their food they might provide their children, because it's actually very serious. So they can end up in a lot of hot water in the future for not treatment planning correctly. And yes, I appreciate confidence is one thing, but perhaps they need to really understand what it is that they've got to do first of all. I think associates, well, not associates, all dentists have got bogged down with the fact that you have to make the patient aware of every single option, every single risk, every single benefit, and every single fee. And yes, patients do get confused. And again, I've spent a lot of time working with dentists on presenting treatment plans. It is a passion of mine. But you have to make a clear recommendation. You are the professional. You know, if this patient was your mother, your brother, what would you be doing for them? You've got to make that clear, and money has to come aside from that. NHS patients need to know the NHS options and the private options, but they also need that clear recommendation still. That's really important.
Yeah, I think you've answered that eloquently, my darling.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, and I just literally would say exactly the same thing, that, you know, just be really confident like you used to be about making that clear recommendation, but knowing that there are alternatives to every situation, isn't there? So, you know, this is what, you know, would be the best thing for you. These are the other things that you can do. And as long as you do it very much, and I think also, don't make it overly complicated as well. I think, again, dentists are very, very detailed orientated people, so they make it complicated in their own minds. And the other thing that I would say that I don't think you've said so far is just create some time. I know that in this particular example that these patients are NHS, but if that is your practice setup, then you've got the time here to actually chat to a patient. If you need time to prepare yourself for a conversation, do exactly that. So with the NHS patient, take the x-rays or the photographs that you need, and then say, you know, I'm going to look at these, I'm going to take some time out of my diary so that I can look at everything, and then I want to bring bring you back so that we can have a conversation about the treatment, the things that you need, my clear recommendations, and what else that you can do if you don't want to go ahead with the recommendations that I would make for you. And again, it might just be that this dentist needs a little bit more time just to think about how to deliver that. And we do work with a lot of dentists that rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse their scripts in the mirror, so they're really confident about delivering the communication behind a treatment plan delivery, what we would call an options meeting, or a treatment presentation, or case presentation, quite an American word there. But it's really important that actually, being a good communicator is actually it is a skill. And you have to learn how to be a good communicator. You learn how to be a great dentist, so you have to learn how to be a great communicator as well. Oi!
I can see it.
Sorry about that.
I can see him in the background. He's going to bark any minute. But what if he does? Then Monty's going to start. Okay, yes, I think Mike made a really good point there about time. Michael, do you want to read out the next one?
Oh. Okay.
I threw you under the bus there.
That's fine. So, if associates are contributing to cost for marketing, etc., does this give them the right to an opinion on the direction the clinic is taking? That's an excellent question, and I really, really love that question. Okay, so number one, associates need to understand that they need to be working in a practice that they want to be working in. The days of the business owner taking everything on board themselves and paying for all of the marketing, for all of the brand experience, for maybe additional staff members that are needed to support communication and support the brand consistency in the practice, they do need to start making contributions to those aspects. And the importance of those is that it's really important that associates start to understand that you want to be part of an amazing practice. You've chosen the practices you're in, hopefully for a good reason. So make sure that actually you want to be part of that practice, and that you want to make a contribution that ultimately will benefit the whole practice and your diary as well. So that's the most important thing. What I would say is that can the associates have an opinion? Of course they can have an opinion. We need their opinions. Creating a brand experience for a practice is all about knowing that every dentist is going to do exactly the same thing. So you do need the business owner to have sessions with all of the associate dentists to come up with what is going to be the brand experience for our practice. Now, of course, ultimately, if I'm the business owner, eventually I will have to make a decision of what I feel is right for the practice based on the opinions that I've heard, because you might not all agree, but you've got to all agree that actually you've had time to put in your 2 pence worth into the situation, it's been listened to. Then I need to understand and then need to act as a business owner. So when I can do that, then I can understand actually how all the dentists are going to operate. But I am ultimately passionate about making sure that the associates do contribute to marketing campaigns. I am actually advising that if you want a treatment coordinator in a practice, do you know what? If there's 3 associates and the salary is between, I don't know, let's say 12 to 20,000 for an example, that 3 of you splitting that salary to get a treatment coordinator in will be a benefit to all 3 of you. So just do it. It's not a major thing, but actually for the business owner to incorporate another 12 to 20,000 as a business expense, that's a lot of money, isn't it now? That sort of changes do I, don't I? If you need an additional team member at the front desk and you know that the phone is going to be answered more consistently and the patients are going to be meted and greeted in a better way, and actually there's going to be somebody there for you to do a handover experience, for an example, instead of waiting in a queue or feeling that you can't do that process, then again, do you know what? I'd be getting my money out of my back pocket and going, do you know what? This is an investment that I need, because ultimately you will benefit benefit from that investment, because you all sell the same product. It's the experience behind that product that makes all of the difference. So associates, you know, if you don't want to take on your own practice, which believe you me is hard work, then, you know, actually embrace it and actually start to put some of your own cash in to building a better practice and a better life for you.
Yeah, well said, Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, this really does stem from, you know, we absolutely love it when associates have their own passions and they're investing clinically to you know, upskill themselves. But when you're launching a new treatment or a new service in a practice, it's actually very hard to get new patients in. It's actually brand awareness, first of all, and that is quite a big investment. And practices, businesses want to invest in marketing where they're going to get a return on their investment. So if it's brand awareness, without a doubt, associates do need to chip in there to get the ball rolling. But I think Michael said absolutely loads, so I will leave it there and move on to the next question. So the next question, I'm curious to know if anyone here has a TV streaming BBC News or similar in their waiting rooms, and what are your thoughts? Right, well, I can tell you now, I absolutely detest the news being on in patient lounges, waiting rooms, whatever you want to call them. It is the most negative thing you can possibly see. The time is displayed as well, so it's quite clear if you're not running to time. And it just creates the most awful atmosphere and so much negativity in the practice. Turn it off. TVs are a constant problem in practices. You should be looking at creating an ambience. You should have beautiful music playing, some nice soul, you know, just something that just makes it relaxing, warming, not negativity. If you really want to have the TV on, it should be on mute with subtitles. And I'd recommend you look at channels that are sort of, you know, like the Animal Channel, or if you're on Freeview, something that I really like is the Challenge channel. So it's game shows all day. You can put that on subtitles. Happy days. That's great. Something for everybody to look at. But ultimately here, think about your ambience that you're creating in your practice. It's so important. You know, big companies spend huge amounts of money on this. Don't overlook it. Right, we've got a couple of minutes left. Have you got another question there, Michael?
I have got a good question, actually. So if staff are being asked to be on standby to cover sickness, would they be entitled to some form of payment? I think that's a really, really interesting question. Yeah. And not one that I've been asked before, but actually the answer that I want to give initially is actually, when I work in TV, you get what's called a holding payment, which means that you're not working today, but you're in hold, so that they pay you a minimum fee of something like £20 to £35 a day, so that you can't go off and do something else. So if they need to bring you in to shoot a scene, then you are available. So actually, if you've got reliable people that can be on standby for you, if you're on standby, let's say on a Monday morning, and it's starting at 8 o'clock, and you may get a phone call at 6:30 or 7 o'clock to be into work to start at 8, I actually think that maybe a standby payment would be the incentive for somebody to actually be on a standby list for you. So maybe a very small payment of, I don't know, £10 to £20, just to go, yes, you're on standby. Maybe, I think no more than that, really. £10 to £20 to be on standby. I think that's appropriate, don't you?
Yeah, and I've experienced it personally. So a practice I used to work at many, many years ago, when our dentist was on call, the nurse was also on call as well. Now, it was a huge thing that was implemented. The majority of us absolutely hated it, but it was about providing the dentist with a chaperone. Now, Monday to Thursday, we were paid a set fee of £15. Now, we were all full-time team members as well, so it was a lot easier. We were paid £15. If we were called out in the evening, which was up to 9 PM, there was an additional payment. But essentially, we got paid £15. The likelihood of being called out was minimal because the practice was open every day anyway. Never ever once did I get called out. I don't think anyone did on a weeknight. Then from Friday up till 9 p.m. and then Saturday and Sunday we were paid £50. Now I'm going back about 10-12 years, and that was actually quite a nice lump of money. However, if you did get called out, you didn't get anything extra, and you just used to really hope that your dentist was slick and didn't want you to come out for the first person that called on a Saturday morning. You'd want them to wait a few hours in case anyone else called, so you weren't going backwards and forwards. But without a doubt, yes, I completely agree. If you're going to have team members on standby, then yes, they're paid for that. But what needs to be really clear is that they are able to come in at the drop of a hat. It can't be, oh, well, I haven't got childcare today, so no, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has to be, or, sorry, I'm going shopping with my friends now, that type of thing. It has to be, I'm available within 30 minutes notice to come into you on this day. And actually, if I haven't heard from you by midday, then you need a system in place. If I haven't heard from you by midday, I won't be coming in, to allow that person to do something with the rest of their day. But yeah, even if it's 10, 15, 20 pounds and you've got a big practice, it is worth doing without a doubt. So
yeah, definitely. And I definitely think Mondays, because a lot of practice managers get disturbed on a Sunday, don't they? And I'm an absolute no about that. The practice managers should have their Sundays to themselves and not have like a bombshell dropped to them at 4:30 in the afternoon going, I'm not coming into work tomorrow, which quite frankly wrecks your Sunday night. So you should have a clear system about people phoning in early at 6:30 or whatever it may be, and then you call your standby people, and if they haven't had a call by between like 7 o'clock and 7:15, they know that they can go back to sleep then and do what they need to do, and they've had the payment for being on standby. So actually, great question and a great way to end. So if they want to send their questions in, Laura, they do it by ta-da.
You can send them in for our Facebook page, direct message us please, so everything remains confidential, or you can email hh@horton-consulting.com. We will see you again very soon, and do subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and other podcast streaming services. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Pleasure. Bye.